Looking at the student or the class report, we talked earlier about the ability to select the different assessment types. Now, by default, and whether you're in the student report or the class report, by default, MarkBook has it so that these are always selected. And it's great so long as you are able to remember each time that you wish to print up a report, or when you're transferring the marks into Trillium or whatever your mark system is, to unselect the ones that you do not want to include in the calculation of that overall mark. So if in the case we want to make sure that we unselect diagnostic, peer, formative, self, you have to make sure you do that every single time. And if you don't, if you leave MarkBook and come back and log in again, it will by default have these all selected. It may or may not necessarily remember that. So one way that you can sort of help out in this regard is to go to something called MarkBook Setup, and you will find that under the File drop-down menu. Click on that, and it'll open up this screen here, and you can see that Analysis and Reporting shows up at the very top, and you can then select by default the types that you are going to report on. And this is where you can select now the ones that you are always going to have reporting on. So if you're ever worried about, remembering which assessment types that you need to select or unselect, you can do that here and set that as your default. Hit save, and that's pretty much it. One other place that you definitely want to check is in the actual process of transferring over or exporting your marks. And for our sake, at Thames Valley, we use Trillium. And as a secondary teacher, I'll go to Trillium, Secondary Public, and I click on this, and I'm going to start a new file. And when I do that, you can see here that I have the option of selecting again the types of assessments that I'm going to use in the calculation of that final mark, and the mark essentially that I'm transferring over into Trillium. Now, if you've done everything and you've set your defaults earlier on, you should see here that it has remembered that for you, but you always want to double check when you do this. So for sure, when you start creating your secondary report, just double check to make sure that the right assessment types are selected, and that you can then, with confidence, move on to the next step. Unless that happens.